You are watching Co-op for Two. My name is Jesse Reichler. We're recording live on tape today from Champaign, Illinois. And we'll be playing episode 1 of The Legacy of Dragonholt, titled Too New Roads. Legacy of Dragonholt is a sort of unique hybrid game designed by Nikki Valens, who's sort of famous designer for fantasy flight games. She was involved in Mansions of Madness 2nd edition, and Arkham Horror 3rd edition, and Eldritch Horror, and a game called Quirky Circuits. And Legacy of Dragonholt is a sort of RPG-like game, but focused mainly on story, cooperative without a dungeon master. But it's a psychological decision story game. And let's read the little introduction here so you get a feel for what this game is about. Legacy of Dragonholt is a cooperative narrative adventure game in which 1 to 6 players take on the role of heroes. The game contains a single campaign during which you, the heroes, undertake quests by venturing into dark caves and dangerous forests. Along the way, you will encounter vicious monsters and cunning bandits, earn wealth and fame, and possibly foil the plot of an evil overlord. Legacy of Dragonholt is a cooperative game. That is, if you are playing with more than one player, all of you are on the same team. However, unlike other games, Legacy of Dragonholt is not about winning or losing. Legacy of Dragonholt is a game about storytelling. As you play, your decisions will weave a narrative tapestry that tells the story of your adventures in the village of Dragonholt. While playing the Legacy of Dragonholt, you will tell a continuous story related to your adventures. When one adventure ends, another can begin. The game comes to an end when you reach the story's natural conclusion. What that conclusion is, however, depends entirely on the decisions you make on your adventures. Unlike some other games, winning and losing in Legacy of Dragonholt is not black and white. The decisions you make will have far-reaching consequences that ultimately affect the outcome of the story. You might fail to find a fabled treasure or to save an innocent victim, but if you enjoy the story, that is a victory. Okay, so that gives you a flavor of what kind of game this is. It's well regarded, and it's a little bit a flavor of a work of art rather than a strategy game. So jumping ahead here a little bit. It says there are a couple things we put aside that we won't need yet. There's Sonia's journal, which is here. We won't need that yet. There's a deck of specific item cards that it will tell us to get out as we need them. So we're just going to put these off to the side here. And then there's a letter from Celise, which we're going to get during the first adventure. So we'll just put that aside for now. There are also some tokens that you use if you're playing multiple players, but we'll just be playing one character. And then the first thing you do is in setup is create your hero as if you were playing an RPG game like Dungeons and Dragons. There's a booklet for creating characters. I've already created one here, and I've typed it up using one of the fillable PDF files that someone has made available on Board Game Geek file section. So we'll go over this together only on this first quest. So I'll walk you through the, let's see if we can do this. I'll walk you through the book steps, and then I'll tell you what I've done here. So the first thing we do is choose a race. We could be humans, orcs, dwarves, elves, gnomes, or catfolk. I picked elf. I gave her a name, Lyriel. I made her female. I'm always of the opinion that you should play these games and be someone different. Choose a class. So I choose the class of Knight. It tells you different things about what each class is and what each race is. The Knights are noble warriors trained in all the arts of combat and equipped with the finest weapons and armor. Each race and each class has certain skills that they're naturally good at. So after you've done this, and elves live long, there's a bunch of stuff for your character that is just flavor text that might guide what decisions you make. But you do have an important thing to do in picking skills. So what the game tells you is each character will have from 5 to 8 skills and a base stamina of 14. And then if you take more than 5 skills, that eats into your stamina. But if you're playing with less than 3 players, you get boosts to your stamina. So essentially I took 7 skills, which dropped my stamina by 4, but since I'm playing single player, it increased my stamina by 4. So I've got a base stamina of 14, which I don't know how that affects gameplay. I don't know what that's going to do, but I basically tried to balance it. And then skills, you can see here, there's a lot of them. There's combat skills, physical skills, mental skills, social skills, and utility skills. I find these decisions quite agonizing. But the game tells you that 2 of the skills you choose must be on your race skill list, and 2 of the skills you choose must be on your class skill list. I chose 2 combat skills. I chose archery, which is basically long-range combat, and dueling, which is 1-to-1 melee combat. So I gave her a good mix of combat. I gave her the physical skill of stealth. Represents your ability to move about undetected, silently, and unseen. I gave her the mental skill of awareness. Represents your ability to observe your surroundings. Being aware, you are more likely to notice changes in your surroundings or if someone is sneaking up on you. For social skill, I chose persuasion. Represents your ability to alter another's opinion or perceptions of a social situation. You might be able to persuade a vendor to lower their prices. And I chose 2 utility skills. One is craftsmanship, the ability to build, repair, or dismantle wares. And I chose the ability of runes, which represents your knowledge of rune-bound shards and the ability to bend the rules by which they function. There's a little sidebar here about what are rune-bound shards. Magic in the rune-bound world is greatly powerful but untamed force. Individuals power enough to control the arcane are few and far between, even among the elves. So there's a little story about how the orb was shattered into these shards, and the shards are fragments of pure magic. So I tried to give her a little power to mess with magic. There are some magic skills I considered, but this gives her some ability to mess with the runes. So those are her skills. You can see they can be disabled. And then it tells you to make up a little background story that is not a game mechanic but might help inform your decisions and her personality and ideals and physical description. So I just filled this out a little bit. Her background is she was raised as an orphan by some errant knights, trained as an assassin, sort of an Arya Stark little storyline here. And she's on a journey of self-discovery and moral questioning, learning to control her inner anger. So she might be prone to fits of anger and revenge. So she's a solitary introvert motivated by honor and justice and knowledge acquisition, embraces complexity and contradictions. She's rebellious and stubborn, and she's a little plain-looking mutt. little runt compared to normal elves. So there's her backstory. She's an orphan, trained as an assassin, but trying to be honorable, but still motivated by revenge. So she's got a little inner turmoil there. Okay, so that's character creation. We're done with that. We should be done with that for the whole game. It's just the one character we're bringing in. Lyriel is her name. So we've created our character. That's going to be here. And we've also got a little story tracking sheet. Now this is again downloaded from BGG. You can see this sheet is from the back of the rule book. And then each of the chapters of the game come in their own little booklet. Then there's also a big booklet for the village itself. So we're going to set aside the booklet for the village itself here. And we'll take the booklet for To New Roads, and we'll put that here. And then the others, which will be other gameplay sessions, 5 more, we'll put aside. We shouldn't need these. They each have their own little tracking sheet at the back, but I've printed out versions of that so I won't have to mark up the actual booklets. Okay, let's go back to setup and continue here. So we've created our heroes, our one hero. It says to start out with 100 gold and 2 fame. Your fame increases as you become more well-known or your efforts are acknowledged by the nobility or townsfolk. Like gold, fame is shared by all heroes. Leave your story points here unmarked. Story points will be marked during your adventures to track the decisions you've made. Then it says, begin your first quest. During your adventures, you will be instructed to read specific entries in a quest book. When instructed to read an entry, you might wish to record the entry number on the tracking sheet for that quest, which will be here. To complete setup and begin the first quest, read the To New Roads quest book entry 1000. And then the rest of this rule book is a sort of glossary of rules, but it says that this is just a place where all the rules are, and you should be getting the rules as you read. So I think we just jump in, and we'll see new rules will be taught to us. I guess we should read this little introduction story first, though. So here we go. Introduction. I don't think Sonia's death was an accident, explained Celise, warming her hands at the fire. It's late and an unseasonable chill has set in around the manor. If nothing else, it reflects her mood. Foul play? Asks Timothy. Even with her back turned, Celise can all but hear the steward's brow arch. Based on what? Something Sonia told me herself, replies Celise. She turns and looks over the small office where Timothy manages the Countess's affairs. She crosses the distance to him and shares what she knows in a quiet voice. He listens, asking no questions until she is done. Who else have you told? He asks. Just you. I see. I shall discuss this with the Countess in the morning. For now, I think it's best to keep this quiet. Philip, especially, doesn't need these thoughts gnawing at him with his sister's death so fresh. Yes, I think you're right, sighs Celise as she departs. Perhaps my fears are groundless. She muses to herself. In any case, I've already left my letter with the town clerk to be sent with the morning's post. She returns to her bedroom, jumping at every shadow cast by the statues in the gallery and every sound that could be a muffled footfall. You're imagining things, she whispers. The nearest statue tips and falls towards her. Okay, so that's our introduction. And that's all we should need of this until we need to refer to the glossary. This map here, we are not supposed to have yet. I've just laid it out. We're going to get it soon, I think, though. All right, so wait, what did the rule book it said? It said we start our adventure by going to 1,000, entry 1,000 of To New Roads. Okay, so here's our To New Roads. It's got a beautiful illustration on it. It tells us the playing time is 50 to 80 minutes, which we probably double or triple. Okay, and then here's To New Roads sheet, and the game says we might want to track what entries we've read, so we're starting and reading entry 1000. Alright, let's see what entry 1000 says. Okay, it's long. There's a lot of reading, obviously, in this game. Your attention, please. You will notice rules sidebars such as this one throughout the quest book. These sidebars are intended to be used by first-time players to more easily learn the rules. Each sidebar is placed in an entry where you are first encountering a new rule. You can read more about any of the rules in these sidebars by reading their respective entries in the rules glossary in the rulebook. When searching for a specific rule, you will find it most easily in the rules glossary. Okay, I just want to do one thing. I'm going to see if I can make this inset a little smaller here. That might be a little better for us. Okay, here's the story. You slump down on the wooden bench, stretching your legs. You've been traveling for nearly a week now toward a small village called Dragonholt. Your journey is at the request of Celise, a former adventuring companion and friend, who has since found her calling as a tutor to the children of Countess Regina Fairfax, Lady of Dragonholt. You take a moment to reread the letter. Read the letter from Celise. Okay, so here we go. Here's the letter from Celise. It's kind of exciting. We've got this letter. Okay, what does it say? On the back it says, please refer to my first letter. My friend, I pray this letter finds you in good health for once, because I need you to travel. To something. Travel? I need you to... As you might have heard, I've taken a position as a tutor in the household of Lady Regina Fairfax, Countess of Dragonholt, just outside the village. I elected to take this position because I hoped for some peace and quiet after that business in Nericall. Had I known what my future held, I would have done something else entirely. Lady Regina's 3 children are more than lively enough to deny me anything resembling peace or quiet. Even now that they are mainly grown, I remain very busy. But I did not write to you to complain about my lot in life. As you know, I never complain, even when the so-called dwarven wine is very obviously an inferior vintage. Again. Or when my very favorite cloak, the blue one, is stained by some drunken lush spilling his wine. Elves really should stay out of human taverns. I write to you because I fear something sinister is at work here in Dragonholt, and now I require your assistance. I dare not say more openly, as I think it likely this message will be intercepted. I can trust no one here to help me with this matter. After that business in Nericall, I have only you and a small handful of other allies left. Please help me. There is more at stake than you know. Signed, Celise. Okay, so that's Celise's letter. She needs help. Something's amiss here in Dragonholt. You are uncertain why Celise has summoned you to Dragonholt. Her letter is strange, speaking only of a vague threat that requires your assistance. And although you are sure the letter was written in her hand, the message contains several details that you find uncharacteristic of the elf you adventured with in the past. You had never known Celise to drink dwarven wine, and you would swear she always wore a green cloak. It is not unthinkable that her preferences have changed over the years, but something about the way the message is written makes you feel there is more to the letter than what is obvious. You have always known Celeste to be excessively proper in her speaking. She must have been in a panic while writing to have produced so many spelling errors. Even more alarming is the brief note on the back of the letter. That's the one that said, "Please refer to my first letter." You had not received any word from Celeste before this one. Could she have sent another letter that was intercepted, as she had feared? Regardless of the vagueness of her request, you owe Celeste at least this much after that business in Nericall. As the tutor in the employ of a countess, she may be in a position to reward you handsomely for any assistance you can render. Excuse me, is this the road, the fastest way to Dragonholt? You look up from the letter to see Miriam, a gnome merchant you've been traveling with, talking to another traveler and pointing down a path towards a forbidding-looking forest. Aye, if you're going to Dragonholt, you'll have to go through the Eventide Forest. Ain't no way around it. About a day's travel straight through. Miriam thanks the traveler, and he continues on his way in the direction opposite the forest. You fold the letter and stow it away before standing. It won't do to rest for too long. You sling your baggage over your shoulder and prepare to resume your travels. Miriam turns to face you. Well, what are we waiting for? If that's the road to Dragonholt, let's be off. Miriam has been traveling with you for some 3 days now. Like you, she is traveling to Dragonholt. And, as she put it when you met, the more the merrier. We should proceed with caution, calls Braxton from behind you. The orc woman hefts Miriam's bag off the ground where the gnome had left it and drops it into Miriam's open arms. Rumor has it there are bandits who make camp in those woods. We should watch our backs as we pass through. Since meeting Miriam and the orc knight-errant, you have found Braxton to be the more cautious of the pair by a wide margin. As far as you can tell, Miriam has hired Braxton for protection, but at times the orc seems to dote on the gnome more than a bodyguard would. You nod in agreement at Braxton's comment. With a last fleeting glance at the crossroads signpost, you follow after the energetic gnome who has already started off toward Eventide Forest. And now we've got 3 choices here. Let's make some headway before we lose the light. Or, what else have you heard about these bandits? Or, stick close, Miriam. It's dangerous to get separated. Okay, now it's telling us about making decisions. I hope it tells us whether we have to do one of these or we can do all of them. During your adventures, you will decide how to react to situations and how you act in general. Options, seen above, are easy to identify by their white text on a dark red background. When you reach a decision point, a set of 2 or more options, you will read each of the available options and choose the one you prefer. You will then resolve the effects found below that option. Each effect is preceded by an arrow. For example, if you choose the "What else have you heard about the bandits?", you are instructed to read entry 7773. To resolve this effect, you will turn to the page that contains the specified entry and read that entry in its entirety. The entry in turn will contain another decision point or have further effects for you to resolve. If you're playing alone, you will make all decisions throughout your adventures. However, if you're playing with 2 or more, you'll take turns making decisions. That's when you use these tokens here. Each player has an activation token. You exhaust a token when you make a decision. Once you've made a decision, your token's exhausted. You can't make another decision until your activation token is refreshed. One of the players, so you're basically taking turns making decisions. When you make a decision, you become the active player. The word "you" in an effect refers to you, the active player. The words "you each" refer to each hero individually. All right, so this is just one of us. Okay, so we do one of these 3. We can either make headway before they lose the light, ask more about the bandits, or say, "Stick close, Miriam. It's dangerous to get separated." So Miriam is a traitor. she's going with us. She's a gnome merchant. And Braxton is behind her, and he's her bodyguard. Braxton is the more cautious of the pair. You think that Miriam has hired Braxton for protection, and he's an orc. Okay. Do we want to hear more about the bandits? Do we want to tell Miriam to stay close? I guess we should hear more about the bandits. If we're going to meet them, it would be good to know about them. So I'm going to choose to read entry 7773. So I'm going to write this down, that we've chosen to read 7773. Okay, here's 7773. Braxton strides beside you, keeping an ever-watchful eye on her eager companion. Not much. I've just heard from some travelers that a number of caravans have been ambushed while passing through. Valuable goods were taken, but the merchants and traders have been mostly unharmed. Mark story point S1. Okay, so S1 is a story point on this main story point here. Okay, so S1 we're marking. Okay, so we've heard that they rob people, but they don't kill them. It says, story points are abstract recordings of the decisions you make throughout your adventures. They allow future entries or future quests to play out differently depending on the decisions you've made. Story points are recorded on the story tracking sheet. Some effects, like the ones above, instruct you to mark one or more story points. To mark a story point, locate it, then mark that box with a check mark or an X. Some effects in future entries will be resolved differently if certain story points have been marked. Okay, now we make another choice. It looks like it's the same two choices that we had before that were left. Hurry along before it gets dark, or tell Miriam not to get too far ahead. Let's see here. If we were doing it live, I would be asking the audience, but we're not quite doing it live. Let's just hurry along before it gets dark. 6620. 6620. Okay. You hustle forward to catch up to the gnome and keep pace with her. Braxton falls in just behind you. I understand your enthusiasm, but we must take our time once we enter the forest, or we may become lost. So she said, the Miriam is saying we have to take our time here. Mark story point A1. Okay, let's mark story point A1. And read entry 1340. As you speak with your traveling companions, small trees begin to dot the terrain around you. Tall grass gives way to brush, and you soon find yourself at the edge of the forest. Time passes. Now it's gonna, so it says time passes here. And it says, here's what it means. Throughout your adventures, you will track the passage of time on the tracking sheet for the current quest. Each unit of time represents an abstract amount of time that could be anything from a few minutes to multiple hours depending on the current quest. When time passes, mark one box of time with a check mark or an X. Some effects in future entries will reference how much time has passed. Okay, so we're on to new roads, and we just had one time pass. As you walk, you take the chance to become better acquainted with your fellow travelers. So we could ask Miriam what she plans to do in Dragonholt. Or ask Braxton what she plans to do in Dragonholt. I mean, it feels like Braxton is the bodyguard. So let's ask Miriam what she plans to do in Dragonholt. So mark story point E7. It's interesting that we're marking all of these. I feel like maybe this should be separate. Well, okay, we'll just put it off for now. So I'm marking E7 and 3579 we're going to read. I'm glad you asked, bubbles Miriam. I'm going to set up the finest apothecary's shop that Dragonholt has ever seen. I'll brew potions and sell remedies and make lots of money. She nods, tossing a vial of pink liquid into the air and catching it, balancing it on her finger for no particular reason. My aunt can help me get started. She already runs the best inn in town. She's a fantastic tailor, too. Miriam flourishes her half cape and brightly colored tunic. Okay, now I got a bunch of choices here. We can ask Miriam what types of potions she brews. We can ask Miriam about her family. We can exchange brewing recipes with Miriam if we have the alchemy skill, which we do not. So we can't do that. Compliment Miriam's attire and inquire about its maker. That requires craftsmanship skill, which we do have, or empathy skill. Tell Miriam what you know of Dragonholt's market if we have history or streetwise, which we don't. Educate Miriam on methods for barter and trade if we have persuasion or streetwise, which we do. Okay, and then here it's telling us a little bit about required skills. Some options, like those seen above, require you to have one or more skills, items, or some other condition to be true. You cannot choose an option if the requirements are not met. For instance, you cannot choose the exchange brewing recipes with Miriam unless you have the alchemy skill. If you are playing with 2 or more players, you may read through all of the possible options before deciding which player will make the decision. That's interesting. So if you had used your token and you couldn't be the leader of that decision, then even if you had the skill, you couldn't do it. All right, well, I guess we should do one of the ones that we have the skill for. So maybe we can ask about her attire, her nice tunic. Or we can try to educate her on the methods for barter and trade. I just don't see us educating her or not. So let's do the craftsmanship skill. So did we write down... We didn't write down that we went to 3, 5, 7, 9. And now we're going to complement Miriam's attire. So 1, 9, 4, 2. Because we have craftsman. Okay, 1, 9, 4, 2. You compliment Miriam's clothes and make a few astute comments as to the skill with which they were made. The cape in particular seems like it's both tightly woven and brilliantly hemmed. You like it? Asked Miriam. Aunt Sapphire made it, especially for me. It keeps the sun off and the rain, and I think it looks just dashing. She holds her cape out in her arms and makes a few swooshing motions, letting the fabric billow around her. Mark story points D4 and M3. Okay. So D4 and M3. These seem pretty insignificant conversations to be marking story points, but if 2 or more time has passed, go here, otherwise go here. Okay, well, only 1 time has passed. So otherwise 7616. All right, 7616. You continue down the road, and the sky overhead is soon obscured by the foliage of the forest canopy. Streams of sunlight dance around you as gentle breeze shakes the leafy ceiling. Miriam skips forward and spins through the shafts of light, smiling and laughing. Boy, she's in a good mood. That's kind of foreboding. It would be best if you stayed close. Becoming lost in the woods is all too common for those not accustomed to traveling without the sun or moon to guide them. Despite the orc's warning, Braxton makes no additional effort to keep pace with the playful gnome. If story point N3 is marked, go here. Otherwise, go here. All right, so let's see. Is N3 marked? I don't think so. No. Oh, M3 is marked, but not N3. Okay, otherwise, read 7094. What about you? Asked Miriam. What are you planning to do in Dragonholt? Before you can answer, she hunches over and crooks one finger like a sinister hook, putting a sneer into her voice. Are you seeking vengeance on a terrible foe? Just as quickly she swoons, throwing one hand artfully over her forehead. Or are you in search of love? Miriam tumbles backward over a log with a squawk. She grins up at you from a pile of sticks and leaves. Or maybe it's just a chance encounter. She continues to talk about everything and nothing before finally pausing for breath. We can ask Miriam about Eventide Forest. We can ask her how she met Braxton, or we can ask her about gnomes in general. I'm kind of curious how she met this bodyguard person. Let's ask her about how she met Braxton. Read entry 3686. Okay, I guess we should have recorded. We went to 7094. It's hard to remember to do all these. 3686, 3686. I do think we better separate these. That way we can keep one far away and one nearby. Okay, 3686. Miriam starts laughing before she even begins her story about meeting Braxton. Well, first of all, whatever Braxton tells you, I wasn't drunk, says Miriam. But we did both get thrown out of the same tavern together. It was a good night. I remember it rather differently, says Braxton. Well, that's because you're no fun, Miriam winks at you. You see, Braxton is a wet blanket, but she keeps following me around because secretly she knows that she would never do anything exciting if she didn't. Also, you pay me to keep you safe, says Braxton. Also that, exclaims Miriam with a broad smile. If 2 or more time has passed, read entry this. Otherwise, read entry this. Okay, well, we still haven't had more time pass, so we're going to 3859. 3859. Eventide Forest is an intimidating landmark, and you can see why Braxton was concerned. Within an hour of entering the forest, the thin young trees give way to ancient gnarled guardians. The light, leafy canopy transforms into an oppressive shroud that cloaks the road in darkness, even during the most sunny of days. Time passes. Okay, so now we're marking another time. In the darkness of Eventide Forest, a chilling stillness reigns, and even bird songs are drowned out by silence. You continue onward, Miriam's usual banter quieted by her new mood, one part fascination and one part fear. Braxton keeps an ever-vigilant eye on the surroundings, her hand now resting on the pommel of the blade at her waist. You soon come to a stop where you catch up to Miriam. She is glancing down at what appears to be a small game trail that branches away from the main road. Up ahead, you see that a number of fallen trees are blocking your path. An old crossroads signpost marks the split, but the wood is too rotted and the writing is indecipherable. What do we do now? It doesn't seem like Lady Regina has been alerted yet, Braxton strains to look over the fallen trees. We could clear the road ourselves, or send word to Lady Regina once we reach Dragonholt. We could try this trail, offers Miriam. Maybe it connects to the main road on the other side. So we can scout along the game trail and report back. That sounds like we're going off on our own. Climb over the trees and continue on the main road, or clear the road of debris before continuing. Yikes. Scout along the game trail and report back. So I'm a little scared that if we leave, they're going to be gone when we get back. Something bad's going to happen to them. Climb over the trees. These could have gotten knocked down by someone who doesn't want us continuing on this road. Game trail, climb over the trees, or clear the road of debris before continuing. I don't want to clear the road of debris before continuing. That does not sound like it's helpful to us. But do we climb over the trees and continue, or scout along the game trail? That's a tough decision. Scout along the game trail and report back. I think we better stick together. I don't want to leave these guys alone. Although maybe if we leave them here... We could also get lost. Well, let's go together. Climb over the trees and continue on the main road. I'm having second thoughts now. Let's refer back to our personality traits and everything. So she's a solitary introvert, but she embraces contradictions. I guess if she's a solitary introvert, maybe she would go down the trail alone, scout ahead. But it does feel like this is where someone would trap you. We do know about bandits. We gotta stay together, because we got a fighter, this Braxton woman, and we're a fighter. We have a better chance if we stick together. All right, climb over the trees and continue on the main road. Entry 4184. So 4184. Climbing over the fallen trees proves more difficult than you expected. It seems that one enormous tree fell and brought several others with it, resulting in an extensive tangle of branches and boughs. Many of the trees that collapsed were dead, and their branches have a tendency to break off with a sharp crack when subjected to the slightest weight. Others are fully leafed, making it difficult to see where you're going. We should proceed carefully, says Braxton. These trees must weigh several tons. If the pile shifts unexpectedly, we could be crushed. Time passes. We each lose one stamina. You lose an additional stamina unless you have athletics, which we don't have. Okay. Stamina is a measure of how much you can push yourself or resist strain or damage. Excessive amounts of physical labor, prolonged exposure to harsh conditions, and physical damage suffered in combat all cause you to lose stamina. Your maximum stamina was determined during character creation, should be recorded on your sheet. Whenever you lose stamina, subtract that amount from your current stamina, recording your new current stamina, separate from your maximum stamina. Okay? If your current stamina drops to 0, one of your skills will be disabled and you will recover 1 stamina. Disabled skill cannot be used until an effect allows you to recover that skill. Okay, So time passes, it says. So I'm going to mark that. And we each lose one stamina and one more unless we have athletics. Which so I'm losing 2 stamina. So I'm going down to 12. After a few missteps and undignified squawks, Miriam grudgingly consents to let Braxton lift her over the worst of the pile. We all have our talents, says Braxton at Miriam's disgruntled expression. Mine happen to be lifting heavy things. I'm not that heavy, huffs Miriam, not even by gnome standards. Braxton laughs and hauls her down from the perch, finally reaching the road again on the far side of the blockage. Mark story point D6 and then read 8857. Okay, so story point D6. 8557. Okay. Let's read 8557. Well, at least we stuck together. After following the winding road for what feels like hours, you begin to fear that you are traveling in circles. Just as you are about to suggest turning back, Miriam calls out from beyond the next bend. There's a clearing up here. As you round the bend, you see Miriam staring up at a single massive tree that stands alone in the center of a clearing some 20 paces across. Although the great oak's canopy is just as thick as anywhere else in the forest, its branches reach well above the tops of the surrounding trees, affording you a view of the sky at the edges of the clearing. If 3 or more time has passed, which it has, read entry 3549. Okay, 3549. It's already night. No wonder I feel so tired, Miriam mutters with a large yawn. Sure enough, when you look up, you see stars sparkling brightly in the vast emptiness of the night sky. You note how brilliant they seem, so far from the torchlight of the city. At the edge of the clearing, several paths cut through the dense trees, leading away from the great oak in different directions. Only a few seem well traveled, but none are marked by signs. Braxton, too, has noticed the myriad options for further travel. We should get our bearings before making camp for the night. Miriam rolls her eyes at Braxton's suggestion. We can use the sun as our guide in the morning. I'm going to sleep. With that, she takes out a bedroll and makes camp at the base of the great oak. And here are our options. Determine your heading by observing the stars. Requires the Arcana skill, Devotion skill, or Survival. We have none of those. Yikes. Okay. Convince Miriam to read the stars before she sleeps. Requires Empathy or Persuasion. We do have Persuasion. Climb the great oak to look for a landmark. Requires Agility or Athletics. We have neither of those. Leave the navigation to Braxton and turn in for the night. All right, well, we have Persuasion. Let's get Miriam out of her bedroll and tell her to read the stars before she sleeps. So we're going to read 4017. Miriam seems eager to build the fire and turn in for the night. Who cares about the stars, she asks. We'll figure out which way to go in the morning. After some gentle prodding, however, she relents. Fine, fine, she says, and skips out into the center of the clearing, gazing up at the sky. Okay. There's Latariana's star, she says, pointing at a glimmering point in the velvet darkness that looks, to your eye, just like all the other stars. So that means we need to go that way, she says, pointing again. Right. Job done. Mark story point P3. Okay. Okay, there's P3. On her way back, Miriam stops and leans down. She picks up something from the forest floor, examining it as she returns. What have you found? Asks Braxton. I'm not sure, says Miriam. I think this was carved by a human or an orc. It's too rough to be made by an elf. A souvenir to remind you of our trip. Miriam tosses the trinket to you with a grin. You gain the wooden trinket, item B, and read entry 8549. Okay, so we're going to read 8549, and we gain, I guess I'll write it here. Gain B. Okay, well, let's see what item B is. Okay, here's the rule telling us about items. Some effects cause you to gain items. To gain an item, record the item's name on your character sheet, then search the item deck for an item card with the matching identifier, shown in parentheses above. Keep the item card face up with your character sheet. For example, to resolve the effect above, record wooden trinket on your character sheet. Okay, so here's items. She's got wooden trinket. Item B. Search for item B and place it face up. Don't look at any other card. Okay, so there's item B. All right, well, let's see what it looks like. Let's put it over here for you. It's a wooden trinket. It's like a carved bear or platypus. I guess it's more like a bear to me. You found this intricate wooden trinket at the great oak in Eventide Forest. It looks quite old. A heart is carved into the wood, containing the letters T and U. A heart is carved into the wood, containing the letters T and U. So maybe like a couple. T and U. Cute. Alright, let's put this up here with our items. Alright, and then we are reading entry 8549. You assist Braxton in gathering some kindling and start a small campfire a few paces from the great oak. While you work, you can hear Miriam humming softly to herself. You set out your bedroll and relax. Although you are all tired, a brief chat around the campfire is not an unwelcome event. We can ask Miriam what she plans to do in Dragonholt. Require story N3 is marked. Wow. That's the second time it's asked about N3, which we don't have. But we do have M3. I really would love to make sure that we weren't supposed to mark N3. Let me just do a quick backup. We went from 1,000 to 7,700. This is why you write down where you go, so you can retrace your past. I'm just going to look at the part that told us to do M3 and make sure it wasn't M3. 7773 was S1, then 6620 A1, then 1340, which we didn't write down. 1340, I'm just going to add this here. 1340. Yeah, and then we didn't ask Braxton. That would have triggered N3. Okay. Alright, so we don't have N3. So let's go back. 8549. Ask Miriam what she plans to do in Dragonholt. Require story point N3. Ask Braxton what she plans to do. Oh, this is if we had asked Braxton before, now we can ask Miriam. If we had asked Miriam, now we can ask Braxton. So this, if we want to ask Braxton, it requires that E7 is checked, which it is. That was when we asked Miriam. So this is I mean, it's interesting little thing. It's just making sure whatever you did last time, now you do the other thing. Or we can go straight to sleep for some reason. And then we would mark H3 saying that we got an early sleep. Let's ask Braxton. So 4945 is what we're going to do. We're asking Braxton this time. 4945. I mean, surely we're not going straight to sleep. We're having a nice chat here. Okay. Braxton smiles gently, nodding her head in Miriam's direction. I will continue to protect our friend Miriam for as long as she requires my services. As you may have noticed, looking after her does not leave me much time for anything else. I resemble that remark, calls Miriam. After that, I am not certain. I was not certain what to do with myself before meeting Miriam either. I suppose I will travel to a larger city and try to find employment. Now we can ask Braxton about her past adventures. We can ask Braxton about how she met Miriam. We can tell Braxton about our past adventures, which requires deception or performance, which we don't have. We can ask Braxton what lord she served, if we have empathy or history, which we don't. We can ask Braxton about our military training, if we have history or military, which we don't. You can see if you were traveling with a large group, you would have many more of these skills, because there would be, say, 4 of you with 5 skills each. That's 20 skills compared to we've got 7. Show Braxton how to foil sleight of hand if we have awareness or thievery, which we do. We do have awareness. Let's do that then. I mean, I think in general, if we have a skill, we should do it. Some options, like those seen above, require you to have 1 or more skills. You can't choose if you don't have it. This is just repeating. Okay, so we're going to show Braxton how to foil sleight of hand because we have awareness. So 7526. 7526. Braxton chuckles and waves one hand dismissively. I'm certain that I'm capable of... She notices what you are holding, and her hand drops to her belt, where her purse had been until just recently. How did you get my purse? Give that back, she says, and then show me how you did that. You return her purse and then spend a few minutes walking her through the basics of misdirection and thievery. Her brow furrows as she focuses intently on your lesson. Mark story points O2 and W3. Okay, so story points O2 and W3. If 2 or more time has passed, which it has, 3 time has passed, read 4389. Okay, 4389. You change the subject, electing to ask Braxton what she knows about Dragonholt. I've never been to Dragonholt myself, says Braxton. Lord Kaler's lands were west of here, so I never had occasion to visit. I did hear that the village has a fine inn. You heard that from me, calls Miriam. Miriam's aunt runs the place, says Braxton with a smile. Apart from that, I think the place is rather unremarkable. A small collection of houses surrounded by farms and orchards. She frowns and drums her fingers on the hilt of her sword, looking all around. Well, there was that one story about a brave hero who could freeze a dragon's flames in its throat. But I think that was just a story. Braxton lapses into a comfortable silence for some time. We can ask about her family. We can ask about orcs, or we can leave her to her thoughts. Ask about orcs, ask about family. It's hard to know what this game has in mind for us. Like, is this just flavor text and we could just leave her alone? I do like Braxton. She seems like a colorful character. But let's see. A story about a brave hero could freeze a dragon's flames. Let's just leave her to her thoughts. 7598. I feel like my character wouldn't be pestering people to talk when they don't want to. 7598. Don't mind her, Miriam says to you in a hushed voice. Braxton isn't much for socializing. Don't take it personally. I'm sure she'll warm up to you over time. If 2 or more times pass, which it has, read entry 1096. Okay, 1096. Back on page 1096. So we're just jumping around reading this story. Miriam lets out a long yawn, and you second the motion. As you nestle into your bedroll for the night, Braxton speaks up. Best we don't all sleep at once. I'll take the first watch. Can I count on you to take the second? You nod your agreement and drift off to sleep. One of you must volunteer to keep watch. Refresh your activation token if you are keeping watch. The rest of you exhaust your activation token. 2 time passes, and you recover 2 stamina. Okay, so 2 time passes. So we're down to 5 time passing. But we recover 2 stamina, which puts us back up to 14. So we're back up to 14 stamina, our max. And we're at 5 time has passed. Okay, it says recover stamina. You just add it back in. Can't exceed your maximum. You rouse from your slumber to gentle coaxing from Braxton. Your turn at watch, she says quietly. You rub your eyes for a moment and sit up, taking a drink from your canteen to wake yourself. You glance around camp at your fellow travelers. Braxton prepares her bedroll, lies down, and is quickly asleep. Miriam stirs for a moment, possibly awakened by the brief commotion, and rolls to her other side. A gentle silence takes hold of the clearing. Your journey to Dragonholt has been a long one, but now you are no more than a half day's travel from your destination. The crack of burning branches from the campfire keeps you company as you keep watch. The moon is beginning to set, and you know the light of a new dawn will soon grace the forest clearing where you have made camp. Just then, you hear a rustling in the thick brush on one side of the camp and recall Braxton's warning about bandits. We can watch for further movement or signs of danger, arm yourself and take a closer look, or wake your fellow traveling companions. I'm going to choose to watch for further movement because we have good awareness. And maybe we're going to spot something else. So we're going to watch for further movement or signs of danger, which is 3, 1, 2, 3. But we're not arming ourselves, huh? That's a little scary. 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's go 3, 1, 2, 3. You shift yourself to watch the side of the camp where you heard the rustling, but you see nothing in the darkness. You wonder if the firelight is blinding your night vision or if the sound you heard was just some animal scurrying about. Just when you think you were worried for nothing, you hear a branch snap and leaves rustle, and then a half-dozen rough-looking figures step from the trees. They're clad in torn and stained clothing and scraps of leather armor, their long knives and the steel of their arrowheads glinting in the light of your fire. Bandits. The bandits rush forward as you scramble to your feet. Some of them lift their bows, pointing the arrows back and aiming at you. You shout a warning to your companions, who spring to their feet and arm themselves. Read entry 5912. Wow, they got bows, and there's a bunch of them, huh? Half dozen. That's not looking great for us. 5912. More and more bandits step into the firelight. Their armor and weapons seem crude but sufficient to the purpose. Braxton grips her sword in her right hand, doing her best to keep herself and her shield between Miriam and all the bandits. So we can draw our weapon and engage the bandits, knock an arrow and fire at the bandits if we have archery, toss a flask of explosive liquid at the bandits if we have alchemy, which we don't, attempt to reason with the bandits. I really don't think we're going to be able to fight so many bandits. Half dozen, huh? Alright, let's try to reason with them first. Maybe we can bide some time for Miriam to conjure up some potion. So I'm going to attempt to reason with them. 4, 7, 3, 4. But I'm really just biding some time to let the other people wake up. Let Miriam and Braxton wake up. Let's get a feel for how many bandits there are before we start firing arrows at them. Maybe they're not even there to attack us for some reason. They're just afraid of something. 4, 7, 3, 4. You attempt to reason with the bandits and prevent bloodshed. Well, it's very simple, says a bandit you take for their leader. He steps into the light of your campfire, revealing a scar that runs down the side of his face. We're traditionalists, you see, and the tradition is this: your money or your life. Before you can make any sort of counteroffer, Miriam's voice cuts the negotiations short. Go sniff a goat, she shouts. The bandit leader roars and his minion rush to attack. So much for reason. Read entry 4300. Alright, so that wasn't quite what I was hoping for because we could have gotten an arrow off. 4300, okay. Braxton hefts a heavy steel shield and slashes her longsword threateningly at one of the approaching bandits. Miriam produces 2 flasks and unstoppers one of them. A thick, acrid smoke pours from its open mouth as she holds it aloft, ready to throw. 3 of the bandits suddenly rush forward, charging the camp. Miriam hurls the smoking flash, which smashes against one of their bucklers. A billowing cloud of acidic fog erupts from the impact site. The bandit shrieks and flails, dropping his buckler to the ground as it dissolves. The 2 other bandits continue their charge. One swings an axe at Miriam, but Braxton catches the blade with her longsword and slams her shield into the man, sending him tumbling to the ground. The 3rd bandit dodges around Braxton and darts forward straight toward you, the spear point trained at your chest. We can dodge the attack, catch the spear and disarm the bandit, deflect the spear and counterattack, which requires dueling, which we have, or blast the bandit with a rune, which requires arcana or the rune skills, which we have. Okay, I want to do dueling, so that's 8, 4, 2, 7. So we're going to catch his spear and counterattack. 8, 4, 2, 7. With instincts born of long training, you brace yourself, readying to parry the incoming thrust and counterattack. As long as you don't slip up, you can drop the bandit in a single attack. Well, if you have agility or athletics, otherwise, well, we don't have either, so we have to read 5705. That sounds unfortunate. 5705. We might need some help. You swing your weapon to deflect the spear, but only manage to divert it from a killing blow to a piercing jab in your shoulder. The spear point comes out black in the firelight, covered in your blood, and pain flares all around your arm. You lose 5 stamina. So we're down to 9 stamina. That's horrible. Ignoring the pain, you lunge forward, catch the bandit off guard. He attempts to block with his spear, but you knock it aside and then follow up with a thrust that leaves the bandit bleeding on the grass. You step back, taking a moment to assess the situation. If story point H3 is marked, let's see, is H3 marked? Nope. Otherwise, read 9513. Okay, 9513. For Collar and Harmon, bellows Braxton. In the flickering firelight, she seems a demon from a nightmare, huge and dark and powerful. 3 of the bandits attempt to surround her, but she pivots away, slamming her shield into one and knocking her down, then slashing at the second and sending him screaming into the dark, clutching at his face. She trades blows with a large human, his axe sliding off her shield, her sword flickering past his face as he dances backward. You notice a bandit with his hair in a long braid creeping up behind Braxton with a knife glimmering in his hand. Focused as Braxton is on her battle with the large bandit, she clearly hasn't noticed. That's scary. We gotta save our friend here. We can intercept the approaching bandit, catch the bandit from behind, or stop the bandit with an alchemical concoction, which we don't have alchemy. I think because we've got stealth, we should try to catch the bandit from behind. 9250. Moving as quickly as you can on silent feet, you drift up behind the braided bandit. He lifts his knife ready to bring it down onto Braxton's neck, and you reach to grab him from behind. If you have stealth skill, which we do, read entry 4545. Yikes, I hate to think what would have happened if we didn't. 4545. Okay. You grab the braided bandit from behind, twist and pivot him around your hips, sending him tumbling to the ground with an undignified yowl. As he struggles to stand, you plant one foot on his back and shove, sending him sprawling yet again, this time into your campfire. He screams and shoots to his feet, running in random loops as he attempts to beat the flames out of his hair and clothing. He staggers into another bandit, sending both sprawling, and then you shift your attention elsewhere. Read entry 2004. Okay? 2004. I guess I underestimated our ability to fight these people. Your companions are still locked in combat with the bandits, who swarm around the edges of the light provided by your campfire. Screaming incoherently, a scarred bandit rushes at you. In one hand, he brandishes a studded iron mace. The other arm ends in a steel hook, its metal glinting in the firelight. We can rush forward to engage the bandit, or brace yourself if we have military skill, which we don't, or flee and attack at range. If we have arcana or archery or thievery, or protect yourself with an alchemical mixture. We've had a lot of chances to use alchemy, but we don't have it. But we do have archery, so I think that's what we do. Let's take a step back, fire an archer, an arrow. 3, 5, 6, 8. I hope we can get a far enough distance to fire at this guy. 3, 5, 6, 8. I hope this isn't another one of these ones where it asks us if we have athletics. Yep. You maneuver through the melee, dodging around Braxton and another orc woman. Then you break away from the fray, sprinting toward the great oak, hoping to put enough range between yourself and the bandits you can attack from relative safety. If you have agility or athletics, read this. Otherwise, read this. Boy, I really wish we had taken archery and one of these athletics. But 6332. Because we don't have either of those. If we get a chance, that's what we're getting. If we get a chance to add another skill, that's what we'll do. 6332. We're going to get wounded again. The bandit gives chase and keeps close behind you no matter how hard you run. You duck behind the campfire, then sprint for the great oak, then circle back around the entire clearing. The bandit stays only a step behind the whole way. Your legs burn and your breath rattles in your chest, but still the bandit keeps pace behind you. We lose 1 stamina and we exhaust our activation token, which is irrelevant, but stamina brings us down to 8. Okay, so we've got 8 stamina now. Finally, on another loop back around the great oak, your foot catches in an unseen tree root, and you go sprawling. The bandit looms above you, his hook gleaming, and then suddenly flames erupt all across his back. Screaming, the bandit falls over, rolling around and tearing at his leather jerkin with his good hand in an attempt to put out the flame. Miriam calls out to you, "Quit playing around. These guys mean business, and I don't mean the kind we profit from." Read entry 2399. These guys are doing most of the work. We have not helped much. Okay, 2399. You find yourself standing in a loose circle with your companions and no bandits close at hand. Even more of the enemy emerge from the trees, however, and they begin to surround you. "What now?" breathes Miriam. "You're sure it's the first time you've heard fear in her voice?" The bandits' leader chuckles and speaks, causing the firelight to play off the long scar on the side of his face in a sinister way. "Drop your valuables and leave. There's no need for you to die here." The other bandits hoot and howl and brandish their blades and axes in the air in front of you. Braxton glances sideways at you. "There are too many of them. We cannot win this fight." Well, this is what I was telling you guys in the beginning. Why did we even get into this mess? "We can't win this fight." She edges backward and you notice her lean in the direction of Dragonholt. "You can't have my gold. I'll be using it to start my business," hisses Miriam. Despite the bite in her words, you notice her hands trembling. "So we can fend off the bandits long enough for the others to escape if we have brawling or dueling or military," which we do. We do have dueling. "Create a diversion and flee towards Dragonholt if we have deception or performance," which we don't. "Create a smoke screen or turn tail and run." Well, I'm afraid we're going to have to fend off the bandits for these guys, but we're going to take some wounds in the process. That's a little scary. Alright, let's... we don't have anything else to do. Boy, alchemy would have been helpful. Alright, we're going to duel 6738 and try to keep these guys back and let Miriam get away with her money. 6378. 6738. Sorry. You tell your companions to run for it and spring forward, bringing the battle to the bandits. The ferocity of your attack catches the bandits off guard, and at first they fall back. You press the advantage, taking down a burly human woman with a pair of jagged knives and disarming a gnome man who attempts to dart in and slash your hamstrings. Yikes. The bandits soon regroup, however, and their numbers begin to swell. You are swiftly pressed back, and it becomes clear you will be overwhelmed. Since your companions have already escaped, you turn and run for it as well. Read 3645. Okay. 3645. You run through eventide forest, scrambling and stumbling as you go. You're surprised to discover that you can see, and you realize that the sun must already be rising somewhere behind the trees. Time passes. Okay, so another time tick has passed. The narrow and twisting path soon comes to a steep climb with a rocky outcropping that rises above the other side, on either side. A large standing stone towers to your right. A large standing stone towers to your right. You can hear the bandits still coming behind you, shouting to their fellows like hounds on the hunt. But any pursuer will have to scramble up this same narrow gulch. So we can tip the standing stone to block the path, fire with your bow from the high ground if we have archery, or set a trap. The archery has not helped us so far, but I feel like we finally got an advantage where we can use our archery. 5, 2, 2, 3. I'm going to try it. I mean, there are a lot of people coming. It seems like maybe they're far enough behind us that we can kill the leader. 5, 2, 2, 3. And I really want to use my bow and arrow. You settle yourself into a rocky perch above the path and wait for the lead bandit to come into sight. That's what I wanted. Arrow knocked to your bowstring. Soon, with a shout, a tall, dark-skinned human with a shock of white hair leaps onto the trail. He rushes forward, axe in hand, and you draw back your bow. If you have awareness or willpower, well, we do have awareness, finally. Otherwise, wow, every time we've tried to use archery, it's asked us if we have this other skill. All right, but finally we have it. So 8202. You draw back your bow and send an arrow straight through the lead bandit's heart. He falls, but is soon replaced by a dwarf woman with an eye patch. You put an arrow through her remaining eye, and then into the arm of the orc man who is next in the gap. He bellows and pulls back, and you hear confusion and more shouting from just out of sight. You have the bandits at bay. Read entry 5129. Oh, that's exciting. So we shot the leader through the heart. Then we shot the orc woman in the eye. And then we shot the other guy in the arm. And then they started to get scared because they don't know how many of us there are. 5129. Okay, that's exciting. That's better than knocking down that stone. With the bandits preoccupied by your efforts back at the gulch, you are able to gain a considerable lead on them. The rocky terrain continues to rise up around you, the trees of Eventide Forest becoming smaller and scrappier as you go. Soon you come to a sheer cliff face, only a few scraggly trees clinging to the rocks rising above you. Sunlight spills across the sky above the cliff, a promise of freedom and safety. You could climb up to the top, but it would be a challenge. The path continues to the left a fair distance, then becomes a tight switchback crawling up to the top of the rise. It would be a safer route to the top, but slower than climbing directly. So we can climb the cliff face or run for the switchback path. We don't have agility or athletics, so I think trying to climb the cliff face, especially as I've been watching these real rock climbing documentaries, and as I'm afraid of heights, I don't think we're going to climb the cliff face. So we're going to run for the path, 9716. You sprint for the switchback trail, covering the distance in short order. Braxton swings Miriam over her shoulder without breaking stride. Oh, we caught up to them. That's nice. The gnome contents herself with a single squawk of protest. When you reach the bottom of the switchback, you are already out of breath. You each lose 2 stamina unless you have endurance, which we don't. All right, 2 stamina. We're down to 6. So remember what it said. When you get down to 0, you start losing skills. You start the climb, but haven't reached the first turning when the bandits emerge from the trees. Howling like hounds on the scent, they rush after you. 2 of their number fall back, knocking arrows and launching them in your direction. You each lose 3 stamina unless you have agility, which we don't. Wow, we're down to 3 stamina. That is scary. By the time you reach the top of the slope, your lungs and legs are burning and you're gasping for breath, but you can't rest now. The bandits are still too close behind you. We can throw rocks. We can return fire with our bow. We can block the path if we have awareness or survival. Or we can blast the path with runic magic if we have runes, which we do. Let's try to bide some time with awareness. Or should we try our ruinous or runic skills? I'm a little scared to try that. Well, I guess we haven't tried it yet. We should try it. 3967. Let's try to block the path with runic magic. And hopefully it's not going to need something else from us. 3967. You produce a blasting rune from an interior pocket and calmly bend the energy within to your will. You extend a phantom limb toward the rocks below and with clenched fist impact the cliff face. Stones and earth shatter and fly, showering the climbing bandits with rocky shrapnel. A great cloud of dirt and dust cover the path below, causing the bandits to cough and sputter. Soon the bandits are running from the cloud, retreating into the forest. You have escaped. Read entry 9999. Okay. We were both thrown out of the same... Oh, sorry. As the sun climbs above the trees, you continue your journey toward Dragonholt. At your new elevation, the trees are smaller and further apart, and at some point you have passed an invisible barrier where you are not in a forest so much as a rocky plain with occasional trees. Dragonholt lies below you, and you can see the beacon tower rising above the trees, the sun climbing the sky behind it. You have less than an hour of walking before you. Time passes. Okay. At length you walk through an orchard, the twisting trees heavy with fruit and propped up by weathered boards and poles. Then you find yourself on Dragonholt's main street, walking beneath the dueling dragon statues that serve as the closest thing to a city gate. One dragon is carved from black stone, the other from white, and they arch across the street above you, not quite touching. Marvelous, breathes Braxton. Some sort of memorial of the Dragon Wars, says Miriam. This way, she says, and skips down the cobbled street as if she hadn't been woken in the middle of the night by bandits. You cross a crowded green that is laid out before a garden shrine with a domed glass ceiling. In front of the shrine stands a marble spire, atop which burns a beacon fire. Then you pass a building, dark with soot and marred by broken windows. Miriam pauses at an intersection and peers down two side streets before nodding vigorously and leading the way south. We'll get a proper breakfast as soon as we find my aunt's inn, she says. It's called the Swan. Does it have a lovely white swan painted on its sign? Asked Braxton. Yes, it does, says Miriam. Then is that it? Just there? She points. And Miriam beams. That's it. Let's go. She rushes off in a fresh burst of energy, leaving you stumbling along behind. When you finally reach the Swan, you find Miriam babbling excitedly to a gnome who looks almost exactly like her, plus 20 years. You must be Miriam's friend, says the older woman. I'm Miriam's Aunt Sapphire. It's good to meet you. She welcomes you inside, and you step down into a blessedly cool, half-sunken common room, where a scattering of thick oak tables and sturdy chairs lie beneath rafters strung with herbs and root vegetables. Thick iron lanterns rest on each table, none lit now, and light streams in from tall windows against the south wall. Please have a seat, says your host, and you do. We made it, says Braxton, dropping heavily into a chair that creaks under her weight. I think I could sleep for a week. None of that, says Miriam. We have work to do. Braxton lifts her head and glares. Starting tomorrow, I guess. Let's all take today off. Miriam vanishes into a back room, then appears a few minutes later with a tray rattling with glass bottles of red liquid. Here, she says, and distributes the bottles. It's the least I can do for helping get me here safely. You gain 3 healing potions, item A. Distribute these potions amongst yourselves as you choose. Okay. So there's only one item A. So let's take a look at it. healing potion. It says, the liquid burns your throat like bitter fire, but quickly heals open wounds and broken bones. When you drink this potion, you recover half of your maximum stamina. Okay. 3 healing potions. Distribute these potions. So we should write down that we have 3 since there's just one of us. So we're writing down here that we have 3 healing, which is A. Alright, now it's got a little instruction here on how they work more. You can carry multiple healing potions. However, there is only one copy of the healing potion item card, which should be shared as a reference among all players. Some items, healing potions included, have additional effects listed on the item card. You may drink a potion at any time. To do so, you must have at least 1 potion recorded on your character sheet. When you drink a healing potion, reduce the number of healing potions you have and recover half of your maximum stamina. Playing with 2 or more, you can only drink it if you have an activation. So, this is actually not clear to me what this means. Recover half your maximum. Does that mean recover... Sorry, does that mean recover until you reach half your maximum? Or does it mean I recover 7 because 7 is half my maximum? Let's continue reading and figure that out later. Sapphire returns a moment later with a large tray, overflowing with plates of yellow eggs, loaves of dark brown bread, and a tall pitcher of milk. I hope you'll stay at the Swan for as long as you like, she says. No charge, of course. Not after what you went through to get my Miriam here safely. Miriam pours everyone a glass of milk. She holds her aloft and exclaims, "To new roads." Braxton takes a glass, holds it up, and looks from Miriam to Sapphire to you, "To new friends." The meal is amazing, and you soon collapse in rooms provided by your generous host. You doze through the majority of the day. After dinner, you rest in the common room, chattering idly with Braxton and another patron. Soon the lack of a good night's sleep is too much, and you retire to your room. You will have to explore Dragonholt on the morrow. You each recover half of your maximum stamina. You each recover 1 skill. We don't need that. You each refresh your activation token. We don't need that. You each gain 1 experience. Okay, so we have 1 experience. We started with 2 fame. So your fame increases by 1. So the group goes to 3 fame. Your quest is complete. Read entry 1001 in the Dragonholt Village book. Alright, so before we do that, I'll just write down that we got 1001. Okay, so here's the thing. At the end of a quest or after a particularly harrowing event, you might gain 1 or more experience. Experience is an abstract measure of what you have learned during your adventures. Let's turn this off. Record the amount of experience you've accrued on your character sheet. You can spend it to learn new skills. That's good. Fame is an abstract measure of how well known you are to the public and how they feel about you as heroes. Fame is for the group as a whole. You've completed the 2 New Roads quest. You will no longer read any entries from this quest book. When you complete a quest, an effect will instruct you to read an entry from another quest book. You will continue the story in that quest book. Just after completing a quest is a great time to take a break. You might wish to stop playing for now and pick up from here at a later date. If so, record the entry number and book you have been directed to on the story tracking sheet so you can pick up where you left off. So the story tracking sheet, we're told that we're going to start at 101 in the Village book. This is episode 1. Okay. So that's the end of that. But we recover half of our maximum stamina. So the question is, do we recover till we get to half of our maximum stamina? before we get, let's see if the rule book has something on stamina. Whenever you recover, increase your current stamina by the amount specified by the effect. But it can't exceed your maximum. So, I'm taking that to mean we gain half of our stamina. So the end result, without even using a thing, gives us +7. So now we're up to 10. And if we took a potion, we would max out at 14. So I guess we won't take a potion yet. Let's wait till we need it. All right. So that's the end of the 2 New Roads quest. And shall we read? Let's read the paragraph that or let's at least look at it, what we were going to read to start our new mission, 1001. This is a big book. 1001. Yes, this is short enough that we can read it. Each quest book, including the village book, has its own tracking sheet that can be found on the back cover of the book. When reading from this book, time and progress are tracked. Encounters. When you're reading this book, do not exhaust your activation when you make a decision. Requirements and options can be filled by any of you. I guess so. The village ones are less. You don't get exhausted when you do it. Okay. You wake to the smell of freshly baked bread and the chipper voices of Miriam and Sapphire. Golden shafts of sunlight stream through the window beside your bed, and you idle for a moment before getting up, watching the dust float in the air in the morning light. With a yawn and a stretch, you rise from your bed and prepare yourself for the day ahead. As you step out of your room, you see that Braxton has also just stepped into the corridor. She gives you a polite smile and nod. Morning. You are just about to respond when Miriam comes around the corner from the direction of the common room. Good, you're awake. Breakfast is ready. It's a real feast, exclaims Miriam eagerly. Come on, it'll get cold if you just dawdle in the hall. With that, Miriam takes Braxton's hand and drags her, well, Braxton allows herself to be dragged, toward the common room. Read entry 1042. All right, we'll stop there. That's our next day beginning. All right, so we've got a wooden trinket. We've got some healing potions. We're in the village. We've brought Miriam and Braxton to where they were trying to go. We brought them safely there. And we're relatively healthy with potion to restore us. So that was quest 1 to New Roads. Let's see how it compares in size to the rest of the quests. So the rest of them might be a little bit bigger, some a little bit smaller. In fact, I guess this one was 50 to 80 minutes, and that's what most of these are, except for one of them, which is 75 to 20 minutes. So I guess the others are going to be about that length, which was, what, about an hour and a half of gameplay it took us reading. That makes sense. All right, so I'll do a review when I finish the entire campaign, but let's give some initial thoughts. This is the first, I've played a choose your own adventure book, which this feels very much like. This, the ideas of skills letting you read certain paragraphs is interesting. It's a very smooth system, and it's intriguing that there are going to be new rules introduced. That's very well done, how new rules are dripped slowly out. And there are some cool things here about keeping track of the story points and the items. So as a choose-your-own-adventure book, I like the additions. I'm intrigued by the story. I'm intrigued by the system. It feels like a very evolved, polished iteration of that kind of choose your own story. The paragraphs are good, well sized. All the components are nice. Having individual quest books is really nice. And it feels like there are considerably more alternate branches different story, but it felt very much on rails, and like no decision was wrong. Like again, this was the introductory story, but at this point it felt like we were going to get to the same endpoint no matter what we did. The decisions weren't really very gamey, although we're getting a feel for certain skills need other skills. Like trying to use our arrow in close quarters was dangerous. And there's a tiny bit of a mystery with this letter. Like it says that there are certain things, misspellings, that are suspicious. So maybe we'll look at this a little more. But I mean, I would say overall, it's a very nice evolution of the Choose Your Own Adventure storybook, but it still feels very much like that. Like it's not really... I'm not agonizing over the decisions as much as I have in some of these other games that are similar, because it really feels like any action could lead to an interesting story, and it's impossible to predict what is the right decision. And in fact, I'm just using the heuristic of always go first. If you've got a skill for it, especially in my case where I don't have that many skills, if there's an option that uses the skill, I just pick that. So in many ways, this is a mechanical playthrough. We're just picking always the option that we have a skill for. And occasionally we've got something where we've got no skills. But essentially it's mechanical. We're just walking through the paces and having this story unfold. But it's kind of a fun story. Introductory mission. If all the quests were the same and didn't have more emotional decisions, this would be unsatisfying. But you can see how the game is building us up to like these other people, and there could very well be some decisions here that result in people getting hurt and injured, and that would be sad. So we're in this for the campaign of the emotional involvement and having agonizing emotional decisions. So I am looking forward to continuing to play it to see how it goes. And I like how fast and quick it was. This is much shorter than most of the games I play here solo. It is natural to... One of the reasons I'm playing this is because I'm trying to get a very broad sampling of these reading paragraph games, most of which are mystery games, at least the ones I play, like the Sherlock Holmes. And this is not a mystery game. This is more like an RPG, choose your own adventure, but it is got this paragraph reading system. And I thought it might be nice to try this little outlier paragraph reading system and see if there are any overlap with the Sherlock Holmes type games. So far, not really. So far, this is much more of a choose your own adventure story that you're always going from one page to another and continuing from there, rather than something like Sherlock Holmes or Vienna Connection where you're reading something and then you're going back to all of your choices. So right now, this feels more like we're reading a book and just jumping around to change the way the story tells us the same story, but we'll see. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in episode 2, which we don't know which quest that's going to send us on. Maybe that will depend on our choices. But with that, I'll see you next time.